Hi everyone, I'm Bita Delisi, and in this video we're going to talk about the 5 things that you need to know about the Ontario Standard Lease. This is for realtors. Number 1, the Form 400 is the agreement, kind of like an offer to lease a property. It is the first step and often the stepping stone when an Ontario Standard Lease is signed. After Form 400 is signed, which is actually a requirement of your brokerage, then the Ontario Standard Lease can be signed. Either side, either the listing brokerage or the cooperating brokerage, the landlord or the tenant, can draft the Ontario Standard Lease. Number 2, the landlord is required to provide an address for service of notices. This is a requirement. Often people leave this section of the Ontario Standard Lease blank. Well, if a landlord does not want to provide their current address of where they currently reside, they can obtain a P.O. Box code or P.O. Box number from Canada Post and include that as their address for service. But you can't leave this section blank. Number 3, insurance is not a mandatory requirement and can rarely be enforced. Often landlords are so fixated on tenants having to obtain insurance. Insurance, especially content insurance, is for the benefit of the tenant and their contents. So if a tenant cancels their insurance policy and something happens, tough luck for the tenant because insurance is not mandatory. Number 4, the landlord is to provide a tenant with a copy of the signed Ontario Standard Lease within 21 days of the date that the tenant requests it. The tenant is legally allowed to withhold rent if the landlord does not provide a copy of the Ontario Standard Lease. And number 5, the last month's rent deposit is the only deposit that a landlord can obtain with respect to the Ontario Standard Lease, with the exception of a key deposit, which can be returned upon the tenant vacating. That is the only deposit that a landlord can obtain. If you have any questions regarding the Ontario Standard Lease, call us first.